Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking About Birds, the only Cardinal podcast more disrespected than Tommy Edman. My name is Nate Eininger, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Vince Amorca.
Hey, Nate. Hey, Tommy.
If you have an idea for the opening bit, tweet us at Talk About Birds. Hambone, how you doing? Belly full of candy, I assume.
Yeah, belly full of candy. Actually, belly full of cake. It was my lovely wife's birthday yesterday.
Happy birthday.
And I have a lump of chocolate in my tummy right now. Because
sitting on top of the standard lump of chocolate.
Right. I've added to the pile of chocolate that exists inside me at all times. Yeah,
that makes sense. Hey, I have an important question for you. Are you playing the new Spider-Man game on PS5?
No, I think you know this. I kind of have a rule with my video game playing where I have to I like to beat the game that I'm playing before I jump on to the next game. I will say Spider-Man looks great. I'm having a great time with BG3 though. I'm in Act 3. I'm causing all kinds of chaos. I'm sleeping with everybody. It's great. I was kind of planning on going to Mario after this, unless you're saying I should go to Spider-Man, because I really liked the first Spider-Man, or the whatever the hell. There's so many Spider-Man games, but the last one for the new generation or whatever was great.
I absolutely loved that Spider-Man game, as well as Miles Morales, the DLC, and also Mario is maybe my favorite franchise. So it was rough when they came out. Hey, it's me, Pratt Mario. It is
I like April Ludgate.
It's a Mario.
I like Mario being a badass.
Like Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
Known badass.
Yeah. And I like my Mario going to a weird non-denominational church that seems to be really exclusive towards folks. That's my Mario.
That's that's my Mario. Well, so I I have been. If you have a favorite Mario, tweet us and hashtag that's my Mario.
Yes, please tweet us that,
or email.
talkingaboutbirds@gmail.com.
That's right. I'm a huge Mario fan, and the thing with that is that those games are really fun multiplayer, and where Spider-Man is a solo game, and so it was also my birthday very recently, and I received the new Spider-Man for my birthday. So it's kind of also I just got it first, so I've been playing it, and it's great. It is great.
I don't think I actually wish you a happy birthday on the podcast, Nate. Happy birthday!
Wow.
Even though we're 2 episodes late, but happy birthday.
I guess it happened in between. It happened in between.
Happy birthday, Nate.
Thank you.
Yo ass bitch.
Yeah. I got you by 2 years. So you young whippersnapper.
You're disgusting.
Ugh. And I think playing Mario would be a great choice. By all accounts, it's wonderful, and I'm really looking forward to playing it as well. But there's something about New York City. I gotta say, Ben, it's almost as if it's the third character of the game. The city of New York City.
The city of New York City. That's really cool. You know what I call it, Nate?
What's that?
New Dork Shitty. Got him. Let's go.
How about New Donk City? Go back to Mario.
There you go.
I mean, definitely recommend the game. It's fun. I've said before that swinging is my favorite game mechanic, and it is. Tell you what, man, there's a lot of swinging in this.
I'll tell you what right back. It was Denver and Colorado is deciding to kind of skip over fall, and we're going right into winter. It's snowing a little bit today as we're recording. and it's gloomy. A video game season is officially, it's
Yeah.
really kicked off at this point. So I'm
Okay.
going to hunker down and play my James and gain my levels.
Nice. Gain your levels. Well, I'm excited to hear. I'm still, Molly and I are still like 4 hours into BG3 because it's impossible for us to find, because you don't want to, like, that is not a game that I just want to sit and play like a half an hour on,
No,
it's like I
no.
want to do a session, like a D&D campaign or something. And we just have really struggled to find like that amount of time to commit to it. And so I've been and also I do the weekly video game podcast,
Yeah.
which is all about short video games, so I barely have any time for other
Which,
stuff.
by the way, if you are interested in BG3, I saw that you guys did do an episode about BG3 that you were not on,
Yes.
which is good because you've only played it for a minute. But check out the short game, and if you want to listen to a non-short game version of short game, go listen to BG3
A lot
episode
of controversy
of that
in the
podcast.
short game Discord when we released an episode on one of the longest games of the year.
I'll say I enjoyed it. I thought it was
All
nice.
right. Well, thank you for listening. And yeah, I was gonna be on it, but I'd maybe played 2% of the games. I'm like,
Right.
you guys go and you talk about it.
Yeah.
So, but here we are. We are now just knee deep in the off season.
Yeah.
Free agency.
It's actually started now. We actually have, there's a lot to talk about. We're talking about bullshit right now, but we actually have a full outline to chat through today.
There's still no actual news really, other than a few minor movements from the Cardinals, but like things are happening, storylines are popping up, good and bad reporting, bad interpretations of fine reporting are happening, and good interpretations of bad reporting are happening. It's a real mess out there as we enter into arguably the most important off season of our entire lives, or at least of like, of recorded, memory. This is arguably the most important offseason that we've had as Cardinal fans. And
I think this podcast and the beat writers are kind of mirroring back the chaos that the Cardinals as an organization are experiencing. We're just all losing our damn minds right now. But
well,
everybody needs to calm down. It's going to be fine.
Everybody does need to calm down. I'm not going to say that it's going to be fine, because we don't know. But
I have a rosy picture I want to paint here in the second part of our outline today.
Okay.
I'm feeling optimistic today.
Yeah, I am generally as well. I think we're getting a lot of different information from John Mozeliak right now, but it does all point to, there's a couple things that he has said recently that really do make me feel that we are going to see significant things happen this offseason.
Yeah.
Just what they are and how it all balances out, it's anybody's guess, which is why everything is all over the place right now. But when you hear somebody like John Mozeliak say, we were embarrassed last year, like that really stands out to me, because that might be the strongest word I've ever heard him use. Expressing a feeling. You know what I mean? Like, that's expressing a lot.
I think it's fair to say that of the entire span of John Mozeliak's tenure as a Cardinals front office person, he has never had more pressure on his seat than he has right now. And that's obviously coming from the beat writers, people like us, fans, people filling the seats. I also think it's coming from DeWitt, the way that he's talking about it, and he's using like the verbiage he's using is like what you're talking about. It's putting a sense of urgency on it. He is committed to spending just south of $200 million going into next year. He is committed. He's throwing out numbers of how many relievers and how many starters he wants to add to the team. I think we have a new version of John Mozeliak on our hands all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it has to be, right? Like, I've not been a fire John Mozeliak guy.
No.
I know, like, I get that perspective, but I've not been there. I'm not on that side yet. But I think there's a lot of people, myself included, that if 2024 is another absolute collapse, and it's not because of like expected player like declines, but it's actually because of like foreseen problems, like it wasn't like everyone saw 2023 coming except for it seems like John Mozeliak,
Yeah.
If we have another 2024 that is exactly like 2023, like I think you're going to see even more of us on the side of like it's time for a fundamental overhaul of the baseball operations staff.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not trying to sound too dramatic. I do believe this, and I'm not trying to be shock value, but I think that like this next 12 months will define John Mozeliak in our memories as far as how he has handled this situation. And I think when you're seeing the things where the Brewers are, where the Cubs are about to go, and where the Reds are going in this division, luckily the Pirates are still down there for us to punch on. But
Yeah.
it's either it's time to kind of step up, or you're going to be behind those teams. Definitely the Cubs and the Reds, in my opinion, for a handful of years.
Yeah.
It's not something we can just pull out of easily. It's the next maybe 6 months, maybe 4 months of Mozeliak's career are really going to define what the team looks like going forward and their place in the Central Division. It's very important.
Yeah. Well, and if
It's the most important winter of our entire lives.
I know. Well, I feel like we're talking about like political elections, where every year it's the most important election of your entire life.
It is.
But
Get out there and vote.
Yep. Pokemon go to the polls. So yeah, we'll see. And I think to your point, I think it's even potentially more dire than just the fact that the Cubs and the Reds are, I think, on a steep upward trajectory right now, especially after one Cub move that we've already seen and some reporting of what the Cubs might be trying to do.
Woof. We'll talk about that, but
yeah,
I have a lot of opinions on that situation.
But there's also, I really believe that we are heading sometime in the near future to some sort of non-divisional structure for Major League Baseball. And the Cardinals are not going to be able to rely on the fact that they are in a division that is full of some of the worst teams in baseball, even though that's changing in and of itself. But like, if you have to compete against the entire NL, it becomes a very different story as far as making the playoffs go. So
yeah. And we've beat the Cardinals up on this a little bit, but I think it's worth pointing out that I'm not strictly just talking about they need to go out and spend. They need to have a smarter approach, a player development pipeline. They need to have a decent pitcher come through their system. There are things like that they just need to get better at and take more seriously. And we've talked about it for a myriad of reasons. We think that they've kind of let the league get ahead of them, or at least the third or half the league that we expect to be competitive with as a Cardinal fan.
Well, let's get into some of the news. That we had a really great article from Derrick Goold. I'll tell you right now, as far as this offseason goes, I'm definitely in the mode of only believing Derrick Goold right now. He's the only guy on the Cardinals beat. Like, obviously, Katie Woo is fantastic as well. There are good writers, but like, there's so much out there that is so unclear and inconsistent. I'm like, did Goold say it? Did Woo say it? I'm probably not listening to you otherwise.
I think that's a great point. I also think, like, as somebody who just consumes too much baseball content all of the time, I think it's nice to recognize how lucky we are to have Derrick Goold. I think he's like on a I think he's great. I think he's on a Hall of Fame trajectory. I think he is the best beat writer in baseball. He's super thoughtful. And like the story that we're going to talk about, he is on the ground at the World Series, picking up an interesting story from an interesting player that the Cardinals, had for 30
I also
starts.
I like that he's snarky, but in a way where you kind of get on his side. It's like
absolutely.
He fights back in a funny way, in a way that I find endearing, and less, some of the other people who fight back, you're just like, bro, it's your job. But for some reason, he finds this balance of like, all right, he is right in this moment, so leave him alone. But anyway, so he wrote a good piece on Jordan Montgomery, and all throughout this were some interesting little tidbits of information about this upcoming offseason. But high level, like the article is ostensibly about Jordan Montgomery first and foremost, and it really outlines the struggles he had as a Cardinal with the Cardinals losing so much. If you remember at the
Yeah.
beginning of 2023, they lost, what is it? He got 5 losses in a row. I remember us covering that as it was happening because it just stood out. Like it wasn't even always bad pitching. It was just like constantly bad luck. And we don't care about pitcher wins, but you understand why an individual pitcher would care about it, especially when it starts to stack like that.
When it starts to stack like that, and I also think I would imagine that pitchers care about wins like to a certain degree. I would imagine, or the way that I perceive it is they care about that game being won that they're starting more importantly than any other aspect of their start. And in that article that you're talking about, Jordan Montgomery reflects on a start against the Pirates. I believe it was in Pittsburgh, and he said that it is the best the ball has ever came out of his hand. Like he was feeling, he's never in his life felt like he was more in command and had more stuff than in that game. And if you remember that time period that we're talking about, the Cardinals found a way to lose it.
Yeah,
and he was mad, and it seemed like he was pretty demonstrative about being mad, which is kind of hard to believe, the big old Gumby looking fella, but. Honestly, this article, and I highly recommend you read it if you haven't. It made me really like Jordan Montgomery and want him to come back to the Cardinals.
Yeah, and he basically learned a lot about, it's this narrative-y stuff that we always hear about, being the stopper, being the ace. What does it mean to be the guy who goes out and your team expects to win the game that you're starting, and what that does for your teammates? And he, as a Yankee, he had been traded to the Cardinals because the Yankees didn't feel like he was a playoff level pitcher.
How crazy is that?
I know. And then 2 years later, he's the star of the World Series.
Arguably
rotation.
The reason they got to where they were for making that trade at the time that they did, and then his performance in the playoffs. Yeah.
Sidebar. Hopefully, perfect win-win trade, right? The Rangers forever, regardless of how good Takao Roby and
they don't care. Yeah.
Sajase become, no matter what, it is now a win. It's a win for them. And so we hopefully, it's just, I don't know. Everybody always wants these trades to be like a complete Arenado thing where you just school someone and you embarrass the other side. But it's I like a good win-win trade. That's how it's supposed to happen, So
we weren't going anywhere, so you might as well see Jordan Montgomery, who's a player that we like a lot, have a nice big W in his pocket. It wasn't coming here anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And so an interesting tidbit, something that we had hoped would happen. Now, whether it goes anywhere or not, we'll see. But the Cardinals basically told Jordan Montgomery, hey, go win a ring. We'll be calling this offseason. And I think that's great. That's exactly what they should have done. I'm glad to hear that they did do it. Now, how many do you think he added a 0 to his contract this offseason from the performance? Or he really looked good.
I'll break it. Here's the way I'm looking at this. This is a guy that was born and bred in the AL East, which is arguably the hardest division to pitch in for all of the reasons, right? He was traded, came to the Cardinals, became the ace of the staff post being traded. So he is flexible. He is coachable. He is successful. He then gets traded to one of the better teams in the AL in a playoff race while they're down. He becomes their kind of co-ace, number one, number two, whatever, and propels them. He shows his poise. He shows his dominance. He shows that he can eat up innings. Shows that he can be healthy. I think that I'm not going to say that he's going to get the highest dollar amount from a starting pitcher this offseason, but I think it's going to be very, very close. I think when you look at the types of teams who have gobs and gobs of money, the Reds could roll up the Brinks truck for Jordan Montgomery. The Orioles make a ton of sense to me. Now, are they ever going to spend money? I don't know. Hell, the Yankees could use him. Pretty much. The Dodgers could use him. He is he has made himself extremely desirable, and he could not have looked better over the past 2 years. I think he's going to get a lot of money. I actually, because of all those things, I am kind of doubting his return to the Cardinals. That being said, I would love that to happen. But I think he is going to have a lot of suitors, and all those little unique aspects to his history and his game, I think are going to, like I said, I think he's going to get some of the most money anybody gets who isn't named Ohtani this offseason.
Yeah, I think he is, and whether this is right or wrong, time will tell. But I think he's probably perceived as the top of the second tier or the bottom of the top tier of pitchers available. I
Yeah.
do think Snell's going to get more, Yamamoto will get more, and Nola will get more. But then right after that, like I think he probably is gets the next most, and those could all be pretty close.
And I'm going to disagree with you just on the Snell thing. I think that if you're looking at those two players and you're a front office and you want to spend a bunch of money, you're going to want to spend the money on the guy who is going 6-7 innings and racking up somewhere around 200 innings on the season and getting 32 starts. And Snell, I like Snell. I think the Cardinals should go for Blake Snell. I think that'd be a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Apparently, he's been asking former Cardinals players what the
Yeah.
culture is like and trying to
Which
get a
is
vibe check
interesting.
on it. I'm fully for that. But if I was a front office, I would give Jordan Montgomery more money than I would give Blake Snell.
Yeah, it's what are you valuing? Obviously, Blake Snell's about to win his second Cy Young. He has an insane strikeout rate as a starting pitcher.
Yeah.
And he had a truly incredible year last year with the Padres. But he
There was
also
also
walked.
some magic to his year,
Yeah, he
though.
had the
There was
highest
also
walk
some
rate. Yeah.
can he do this again? I don't think he
Yeah.
can do this. I'm not willing to bet $180 million
Yeah.
that he can do this again. That's where I'm coming from.
He's
To
a
be totally
smaller
clear,
guy too,
I'll take either of those guys on the Cardinals.
Well, yeah, for sure. All day, that's what I think we're going to talk about some different possible outcomes up
Yeah.
here, but it's like, no matter what, whether we slice it as this, like the Cardinals go for the top and then fill it in with the middle, or mostly target the middle and go with a volume play, it's like they're all improvements. Tyler Mahle is an improvement on this team. So
Yes.
like any of these guys, I'm also torn on the Snell thing, for all the reasons you just said. Like, if you look at Dylan Cease from when he won his Cy Young, he had the highest walk rate in the league, and still, he pulled off this magic trick. And he was good last year, but the wheels started to fall off. And a lot of people see him as a good trade candidate for the Cardinals, and I get that, but I'm worried about that for the same reason I'm a little worried about Snell. But I'd be happy with either. Snell's ceiling, I think, and the fact that he has done it a couple times, whereas Cease has only done it like once, really.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of all over the place now.
Well, so I actually totally, I'm picking up what you're putting down, ADH.
Wow.
And I also, because of, how to phrase this. Blake Snell still has his velocity. He still has his strikeout stuff. He's getting older. He could be one of those guys that's like almost Max Scherzer-y. I'm not saying he's going to be Max Scherzer, but how Max Scherzer kind of really came to his own in his early 30s, where he's this high velo, high walk, high strikeout guy. And then Max kind of was able to cut down on the walks and then became a perennial Cy Young candidate. Like,
right.
I'm not saying that Blake Snell is going to do that, but you could see that happening because of the style he pitches in.
Well, and to be fair, he has already won 2 Cy Youngs. I know he hasn't technically won this one yet, but it's
highly likely.
I think it's pretty clear he's going to win. He had
Logan Webb is going to get an annoying amount of votes that I'm going to disagree with.
Yeah, Blake Snell near 2 ERA and a 30-something% strikeout rate, and so. Anyway, let's get back on some of the news. In this article and other areas, we've seen something that you and I both sort of floated when it happened, and I truly didn't expect there to be any smoke around this.
We're super smart.
We are super smart, but
also I know John Mosaic is listening to this podcast right now. Thanks for listening, John.
Yeah, thank you.
We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Get out of here, John.
We're the only people to say this, right? Like, can we confirm that we're the only people to have this idea?
Yep. Bloom, the former was it Pobo? Everybody's titles are always so.
He was Pobo?
Was he Pobo?
I'm gonna look it up. Look it up, Benny. Look it up. He was chief baseball officer.
Oh,
he's a SIBO.
SIBO.
Yeah. What a loser.
No Pobo over there. More like a I'm gonna make a po boy joke again, but I did that last time.
Yeah, you're crushing it today.
Yeah. So he's been let go by the Red Sox happened a few weeks ago. But is generally revered as one of the best minds in baseball. But something obviously didn't work in Boston, whether it was him or just like the curse of Boston, who knows, but he's still pretty revered in the industry. He's one of the chief architects of why the Rays are what they are and have been for a while. If you're not familiar with his sort of background, he was the author of their book called The Rays Way, which is hilarious. So anyway, he's
You don't
out
need to be
there.
creative to be a
Yeah.
Pobo.
Yeah. He's out there floating around. And there is real reporting from Derrick Goold that the Cardinals and him, or the Cardinals have at least expressed interest in bringing him into the organization.
Yeah.
What role that would be, who knows, but you would expect it probably to be some like special assistant to Mozeliak or chief something or another. Like they all just make up titles to fit these guys in there wherever they, what they're working on with Yachty right now too is figuring out what his little title is going to be so he can come into the team. But the fact that they're even actually thinking about it and possibly pursuing it, I think is a really, really good sign of the Cardinals' own self identification of some of their problems. And he is a big reason why the Rays have been so good at developing pitching. And so, like, it just seems so obvious. There's probably a lot of people talking to him, and there may be a team that pulls ohnoCubs and just is like, "You come and be our president," even though we have one.
Right.
So who knows? I don't think it's very likely, frankly. But the fact that the discussion is happening is really intriguing.
I think it's fascinating. I think it's a great idea. The quote that John Mozeliak said in an interview this week was he wants someone from the outside to look in the inside. And I think that is a very concise way of what you and I have been screaming for the last 6 months. Like, just get some other eyes in here, get somebody from a different organization. And oh my God, if they have the Rays on their resume, like,
Yeah.
yes, let it rip. The reason I think there is some likelihood for it to happen is some of the reporting was reflecting the idea that Chaim Bloom wants to spend time with his family this year. He's already getting paid by the Red Sox this year because they fired him before his contract was up. So if he could come in and work some type of part-time role with the Cardinals, evaluate their player evaluation, their player development, and really just acting as advisor to Gersh and Mo, I think that would be worth its weight in gold. Like, whatever the dollars that he's asking for or whatever the commitment looks like, make it work. Because I think just getting an understanding of how the Rays built those pipelines, those databases of information, and those player development practices would help the Cardinals jump like 15 years in 6 months. I think it would be such a benefit.
Set him up with Randy Flores on the player development side. It seems obvious, right? But again, who knows as far as what his competing interests are, what he wants to do. But I'm really excited that they're even talking to him.
And just to speculate wildly, let's say I was very critical of Chaim Bloom's tenure as the Red Sox CBO. And I think, now with 2020 hindsight, I think a lot of that was he messed up the Mookie Betts trade, which he was forced to do because of ownership. And I think that John Henry, now that I'm looking at it again, like with time behind it, I think John Henry was the owner of the Red Sox, was probably saying, just do the Rays here. And in actuality, you would need a lot more time than 3 or 4 years to do the Rays in Boston. So I think it was just mixed messaging and they didn't know what they wanted to do and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I say all of that to say, well, Chaim Bloom's a very smart person. He's from the Rays. He's got a great pedigree. What if he comes, works with the Cardinals for a year or two as an advisor, as Mo starts to roll out of the job, if he becomes a Kobo or a Pobo or a viceroy of baseball
Chancellor.
boys. Yeah.
Chancellor.
It's an interesting and getting somebody outside the organization, having Gersh stay where he is. I don't know.
Who?
Right. An interesting thought though.
I was thinking the same thing. Mozeliak has expressed interest for several years in a row, and it makes you wonder if COVID and everything hadn't happened, like where he would be with the Cardinals right now. But he has essentially implied that he kind of wants to start heading towards a more like high level, but also reduced role, if that makes sense, less on the ground. And so bringing in a guy like this, I don't know. We'll see. It's pretty interesting. The Cardinals did. Sorry.
All I was going to say, you would think that this is a desirable job and a desirable front office. You would think it's very attractive for people to come to the Cardinals.
Yeah, I would like to think that, one bad year and after a couple years of, making the playoffs, but ultimately like disappointing seasons isn't enough to undo the overall, what sort of looking for, like posterity or like sheen of the St. Louis Cardinals, one of the most famous baseball teams and most successful baseball teams of all time.
Right.
So, and it's just like going to work for the Cubs or going to work for the Red Sox. You're like, if you are the one who like heralds in a like a return to form or even, knock on wood, a World Series, you're like locked in to, yeah. So, certainly seems like it would be desirable. I mean, I'll take the job, Mo. I know I turned it down last year, but after the year we had, I think, I'd be willing to listen again.
I wonder, in that fantasy scenario, I wonder, like, would other teams, like, let's say you and I, for whatever, we're doing it together. You can be Pobo and I'll be GM or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do other teams even pick up the phone when we call them?
We got you on speaker. First of all, is this a bird or a boy?
Click.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Probably not.
Or they fleece us. They all fleece us and we look really bad.
No, I'd be the smartest one that's ever been.
Yeah.
The Cardinals did make an actual move.
Yeah.
In the last week. You want to outline that one for us real quick?
I'm a little excited about this move, Nady. The Cardinals claimed outfielder Jared Young, who is a 28-year-old, mostly first baseman in his prime, who kind of came out of nowhere and put up a 147 WRC plus in AAA for the Cubbies in 2023. He has had some power in his past, but really kind of put it all together this year. He was obviously blocked by Cody Bellinger and Morel and the other good players that were up there for the Cubbies this year. But the Cardinals acquired him, essentially got him for free. And he is a left-handed hitter, which I think is very fun and could be a compliment with Goldie. Could be a compliment, like a kind of utility player, outfield, infield, DH. But he's a lefty with power. And, I don't think makes sense to get too excited about a 28-year-old potential rookie. But, you find players like this, or you see players like this every year that kind of found some power, maybe found something in the minors and break out late. I think this should be a fun player to watch in spring and kind of see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it happens pretty regularly. This is the extreme case, but I always think about Nelson Cruz, who hit 399 home runs after his 30th birthday.
Nuts.
Pretty wild. So we have a tendency to, if they're not 23, then they're not going to be good. And it's like, no, it's obviously that's where most of the like true big time all-stars come from, is they were really good, really young and made the league. But, we've seen it in Cardinal history, impact players.
We don't need a Hall of Famer, but a Ryan Ludwig for a couple of seasons would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you think that there's a possibility, like we and everyone has been calling for, of some sort of big package deal where the Cardinals send off multiple current big league roster hitters for a pitcher, you never know. You might need a guy like this or be a little bit more comfortable shipping off some of those guys if you have some confidence in him. And if it doesn't work out, it's fine. Didn't cost too much.
He was a Cub, so it's nice to rub their faces in it a little bit.
Yep.
Potentially.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just, there's actual on the field moves happening, which is cool. We're going to run through some of the rumors and just interesting little tidbits that have been coming out around the Cardinals' pursuit of pitching. Which one you want to go through first here, Ben?
Yeah, I want to talk about. Well, so we talked about Tyler Glasnow, who you kind of brought up as a trade candidate, and that's been in the news more and more recently. Which I really, I more I think about it, the more I think it's a good idea. I wish,
Thank you.
maybe it's a thing where they extend him 1 year. The
Hmm.
Cardinals need a solution longer than that, but I do think he's a top of the rotation type guy and a lot of fun. And hey, what if we brought a Glasnow and Snell back together?
Wow.
Strikeout City,
Yeah.
and old Rays days would be a lot of fun.
And
Um,
I was wrong last week though. I said 25 million of his salary. It's actually 20. And it's not that that's a huge amount, but
yeah,
I mean, it's not nothing,
it's
right? So,
probably more than the Rays want to pay.
yeah, right.
Um, so recently they've also been connected to somebody who you name dropped earlier, Dylan Cease,
Hmm.
and Logan Gilbert, who is somebody that you and I have been talking about for 5 months or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really,
I
any of those Seattle guys. But
Yes.
I think I know you kind of expressed some concerns about Dylan Cease. I really like the breaking ball. I
Yeah.
was looking into some of the numbers. His breaking ball was his slider was one of the best in baseball last year, and it was his fastball that took a step back, and that's kind of what led to some of his lack of success and lack of winning a Cy Young. And that to me feels like something that can be fixed. I also have such little faith in the White Sox ability to run a team. It wouldn't surprise me if
Hmm.
they just kind of the wheels just kind of started to fall off and maybe this was one of the casualties. I'm not saying he's going to come to the Cardinals and instantly win another Cy Young. But him instantly improving at least, to a couple percentage points would not be very
Yeah.
shocking to me. All that being said, if all things are equal, out of those three names, I would love to have Logan Gilbert be a member of the
Yeah.
Cardinals.
Well, you get a lot with Gilbert, cost control. He's young, up and coming, whereas Glasnow and Cease, you're trying to catch, some success, but also some struggles at the major league level. I do want to. I was just looking at Cease a little bit more, and to be fair to Cease, his 3.7 F4 last year would have made him the most valuable player on the St. Louis Cardinals. So when I
Yeah.
say I have some concerns, like my concerns stem from a couple things. One, his strikeout rate has decreased every year since 2021, and his walk rate has increased every year since 2021. And he's not getting any younger.
Right.
And there's not a lot of time left on his contract, so I'd be worried about overpaying and catching a falling knife, so to speak. But even if he repeated last year, again, he would have been the most
Yeah.
valuable Cardinal on the team. So you could do a lot worse than Dylan Cease. Don't get me wrong, but I do have a little bit of concern about the wheels
Yeah.
falling off and his control just completely bottoming out.
So of those three pitchers, we have Logan Gilbert, I think is the obvious number one. If you can get him, please get him. He's
Yeah,
probably a future ace for a while. Would you prefer the Cardinals get Glasnow or Cease after that? Who's your second ranked player there?
I think I'd rather take Glasnow, who I feel reasonably comfortable saying if he's pitching, he is elite.
Yeah.
And rolling the dice on that rather than Cease, who again I have some concerns about, decrease in quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, I would be well. We're gonna say this all off season. We'd be happy with any of these guys,
Yeah.
but if I'm picking, I think Gilbert, Glasnow, Cease.
And it seems like, when you have three names out like that and three different teams in three very different spots, divisionally, competitively, so on and so forth, it really feels like the Cardinals can make this, or what I mean to say is the three starting pitcher conversation is
Hmm.
feeling a little more attainable to me if these are the caliber of players that we're talking about getting in trade. Um, to kind of piggyback off that, the Sonny Gray chatter I feel like is increasing. I almost feel like a Sonny Gray deal is going to happen any minute. The
Hmm.
Cardinals have communicated that they want to make at least a deal for a starting pitcher quickly in the offseason, which
Yes.
has began. His projected salary, this is just a great article that was on MLB Trade Rumors. And again, it's just projected. This is a total guess in the dark. 4 years, 90 million. Sonny Gray. That'd be his age 34 through 38 season. Cy Young candidate this year. What are your thoughts on that deal and the Cardinals spending that kind of money?
I mean, just at first glance, 490 feels great,
Yeah.
right? Under $100 million for a Cy Young candidate. You know, it's these are also difficult to evaluate in their own bubble because like I'm gonna be generally happy with almost anything that they do if it involves
Yeah,
getting a
right.
major league starter on this team. It's more like how does it fit into the broader context of the overall moves from that offseason, you know? So that puts it at a 22 and a half AAV, which is pretty good, you
Yep.
know? And they like there's a whole lot going on right now around Cardinal projected budget, but generally speaking, everyone's expecting the Cardinals to have roughly a 50 to 60 million dollar like of 50 to 60 million dollars of space in their budget to spend right now.
Yeah.
So if you do a Sonny Gray, you're spending about half of that, but it's Sonny Gray, and now
And
you've got him.
and let's paint the world where obviously just a lot of projection and guessing. Let's paint the world where they get a Glass now, a Cease, or a Gilbert. They sign Sonny Gray, and then they go spend the rest of that bag on Blake Snell, Aaron
Mhm.
Nola, Yamamoto. Just seems like his price is going up and up. We'll see, but
Yeah.
we'll just say Nola and Snell for this conversation right now. Are you happy with what the Cardinals have done, when we're sitting in April with those three pitchers? Is that enough?
Honestly, to me that feel maybe I'm jaded, but to me that feels like best case scenario
Oh, I
is
I agree, but
yeah.
I think that there's a real world possibility, like that is not out of the Cardinals budget.
Yeah.
They have the player capital to trade for one of those players. They have the budget to acquire those like I'm not
Yeah.
totally I don't have like a tinfoil hat on right now. At
Right.
least I don't think I do.
That's why I say that's best case scenario
Yeah.
because obviously true best case scenario is go get Yamamoto, Snell, and Nola,
Yeah. Let it
and but
rip.
but I'm not. But like I think best case scenario with a hat of general realism on is it's like yeah, Snell or Nola, although I think Nola is gonna be more expensive than Snell for some of the reasons you've explained already too. And then Gray and then trading for one guy, I
Yeah.
think would not only be like best case scenario, but would be a fundamental change to this team and would be a hell of a fun off season as
Man,
well.
that press conference,
Yeah.
I'd be
Um,
floating.
well, that's what a lot of people are debating right now because I'd actually be very surprised if they pull the trigger on spending that type of money. Because if we say it's near 30 for a Nola and then 22 for a Gray, and then whatever you're adding in from if it's Cease, you're still adding in several $1 million, and then Glass now it's several million depending on
Yeah.
what so you're basically spending your entire cap on that. I think that is unlikely. So there's a discussion of do you go super high end and get like Yamamoto or Nola and then like two of like Amali and
Owaka.
Awaka, or do you do like Gray's at the top, but everybody right around him is around the same as Gray,
Yeah.
And it seems to me like that's the more likely thing. Although I do love all the Newt Bar love fest around Yamamoto, and the posting is only 45 days. Yamamoto will pretty much be decided like in the next month and a half,
Yeah.
one way or another. So we will know that answer, and it would fit in. Cardinals say they want to get something done early. You got to
Yeah.
get it done early with Yamamoto. Why not? But
I would be so
yeah.
excited
Well,
about that.
what would you rather have? Would you rather they do the high end, like top and then a bunch of like low mid, or would you rather have like a whole bunch of like top mid, if that makes sense?
I think the Cardinals are desperate for an ace. I think
Yeah.
that, we watched all of these teams in the playoffs. All of them had at least one guy at the tippity top of that rotation. So I would fulfill that. And then if you can get a couple of middling guys, and I do believe, and now I don't want Mosaic to say this, but I can say this. I do believe that one of our young starting pitchers is going to break out this or next year, 24 or
Yeah.
25. It could be Zach Thompson. It could be Tinkens. It could be, I think one of them will have to work out. Just the odds are in our favor. But I
I don't
think
know.
if you're getting
What? Because we haven't developed an ace in 15 years. It's got to happen now.
maybe, no, that's a gambler's fallacy or whatever.
Yeah, sunk
No,
cost
but
fallacy.
really what
Yeah.
I think my desired outcome would be a Yamamoto, a Nola, and then a trade for a high end guy. Having a Logan Gilbert and a Yamamoto, or a Logan Gilbert and an Aaron Nola. I really think you need the two high end guys, and then we'll mix, match, gamble, beg, borrow, and steal for the other three
Yeah.
guys. We'll figure it out. But I think that I feel like I was smacked in the face of that's what successful teams are doing right now, especially looking
Mhm.
at every playoff team. Um, like you just go
Yeah.
down the list; they all have those top two guys.
Yeah. Well, there's the other. We talked about this a little bit last week, and we'll continue all off season. But the other way you handle this is you you fill up your front end, your rotation with a bunch of these middle guys, and then you spend a chunk of this
Yep.
change on bullpen, shorten your need for elite starting pitching, which we've seen teams be successful at. Not even in that far history, right? And so there is some reporting that the Cardinals are potentially interested in an elite closer, which I don't know. Josh Hader obviously
Hey,
is out there, um, but there's a number of guys out there that would come in and make the bullpen better. I think we talked about this a little bit last week, but with more and more reporting, how do you feel about the Cardinals committing? If we've got 50, 60 million or so to spare, how do you feel about throwing 20 of that towards a ace level relief pitcher?
I mean, I think it'd be a lot of fun to watch Josh Hader,
Yeah.
60 times a year. Uh, he's elite. He is so fun to watch. His style, his hair, everything. He's
Yeah.
must watch TV. I don't think it's the best allocation of
Yeah.
resources for the Cardinals. And it really just comes down to innings pitch. I do think that the Cardinals have options in the back end of the bullpen. I think it's more like raising the general level of the
Hmm.
bullpen rather than necessarily like the. I view the bullpen in the rotation oppositely. Like we need high end talent in the rotation that doesn't exist. We have a lot of 4 and 5 guys there. I think the bullpen is pretty solid, and I also think that you can augment the bullpen in a serious way without spending $100 million on
Yeah.
Josh Hader. I have here on the outline a guy named Robert Stevenson, who I think is somebody that's could be a fascinating pickup for the Cardinals. He's a guy in his mid 30s. He got traded from the Pirates to the Rays this year. Guess what? The Rays fixed him, and now he's a
Hmm.
free agent. He's a right-handed pitcher. He essentially just changed his slider into a cutter. It breaks a little bit less, and he throws it a little harder now. And the guy went on to have an amazing 30 innings or so with the Rays. That's the kind of bet that I think that the Cardinals should make in the bullpen. Full stop. If they go get Josh Hader, I'm going to be really happy about that.
Well,
That's going to be
sure.
so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I agree. And another note I would add is that we give a lot of shit to the Cardinals for their pitching development, but the one thing they seem to be relatively consistently able to do is produce bullpen arms. I know the bullpen started to fall apart in 23, but I think that's more about the starting rotation falling apart and then the bullpen having to do all of the work. But like the Cardinals have been able to bring up and pump out some of these guys that are throw good innings, and I'd
Yep.
rather gamble on Vilking or Zuniga or Helsley and Gallegos and
JoJo.
JoJo and Palante, who's apparently working on a new pitch. Like there's just
The
a lot
death
of
ball.
the
He's
death
working on the
ball.
death ball.
Yeah, I know. Made me think, did you ever play we talked about video games earlier. Did you ever play Mutant League Football
Did
on
not. I know what it is, but I
Yeah.
did not.
I had it on Sega. I'm kind of surprised you never played it with me as kids, but I think I like let a friend borrow it and then they like moved or something
Oh
because
shit.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, because it's the 90s and you're like, well, we're moving. And
Yep.
anyway, so
Gone
that
forever.
they're actually they released a newer version of it that's on Xbox Game Pass that I've been meaning to pick out. But like it was notable because you could if you tackled someone like too hard, they would die, they would explode and then they're just not on the team for the rest of the game. And if you could like kill enough of the
Yeah.
players that they were actually playing like short,
That's awesome.
it was awesome. And you'd throw like there was a trick play where you'd replace the football with like a bomb, and whoever caught it would explode. So you'd like
Yeah.
throw purposeful interceptions and stuff. So
Like
I think that's
Wildy
what Belante
Coyote.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Belante is working on some sort of like that's not a pitch, it's a hand grenade, but anyway,
Death
there's like,
ball.
we actually have names. A bunch of those names I just listed are either have been or have the potential to be like elite relievers, and we just don't have that at all in the starting rotation, like you said. So spend the money where we know we need it. And yeah, I like Stevenson. Was it Brazier from the Dodgers? They kind of fixed him. He's like 36 years old. The bullpen, you're looking for 50, 60 innings. You can find these guys all over the place. And generally speaking, the teams that are the best, they're not paying for bullpen arms either. They're going out and getting them from the scrap heap here, or you do what the Rangers did. Is there's always good relief pitching available at the trade deadline. You don't like to rely on that, but if you can more reasonably go into a trade deadline saying we need bullpen help, that's like a super manageable situation that is constant, right? And you're not going to
easiest
blow
way to impact your team immediately.
Yeah, and there's always good arms available, and the cost has leveled out a lot over the years, where you're not going and dumping your top prospects for 2 months of a reliever or so.
Gleyber Torres for Aroldis Chapman for 8 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Anything else you want to talk about with the Cardinals' upcoming strategies?
No, I think, I'm just excited to see Mo pull the trigger on something. It really feels like we'll have some blockbuster news soon. But yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, same. So we're going to talk about some of the other things that have happened around the league and the World Series coming to a conclusion here in a minute. But before we do that, we want to remind everybody that this show is listener supported on Patreon. If you've enjoyed the show, have been with us, and want to stick with us, show your support for the time and effort that goes into it and join a fun little community. Consider joining the Bird Scored at patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. Patrons of any level get access to our private Discord server. It's a great place. Been a lot of chatter lately, and I think a good place to take all the news that's happening right now and sort of filter it into more reasonable takes and get some good insight about what's happening. So patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. We've also released shirts. They're cool and they're fun. You can find them on our website. And if you want to support us in another way, consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. It helps in a lot of different ways and only takes like a minute or two. So you're driving, just pull your phone out, look down, and start leaving a review. Take off your seatbelt and start leaving us a review. Ben, where can people find us online elsewhere?
I just realized I was just encouraging our listenership to get smaller by them taking off their seatbelts, dying in a car crash. Don't do that. Drive safely.
Drive safe.
Be okay out there. Follow us on Twitter at Talk About Birds. We are on Instagram at Talking About Birds. We are on Spotify. You can listen, review, share us on Spotify if you prefer to listen to your podcast there. We got a TikTok. Check us out on TikTok. Any thoughts or questions you might have for us, or how do I get this shirt everyone's talking about? Oh my God, this shirt. How do I join this Patreon? Oh my goodness.
Wow.
talkaboutbirds@gmail.com. Email us at talkaboutbirds@gmail.com. You can find all of that information at talkingaboutbirds.com.
Talkingaboutbirds.com. All right, Hambone, your Texas Rangers.
Are
the World Series champions. It's over. The 2023 season has concluded, and they did it.
Who cares?
Yep, it's over. Ultimately, kind of a disappointing World Series, unless you're a Texas Rangers fan. We both really thought the Diamondbacks were going to put up more of a fight, and I think we said it last week. After those first two games, I was feeling pretty good about the Diamondbacks' chances, and then it all just fell apart in Game 3, and the Rangers never looked back. Clearly, the better team, you know. So the better team won, and they won pretty handedly. But good for the Diamondbacks. It was fun. They were a good team, but
it was kind of a clunker of a World Series. That's the only thing I'm really disappointed. I think I said earlier I was excited to see. I think I claimed Rangers Team of Destiny a while back. Like
you did.
They just had that. They were just going to win. That's just how it felt to me. I did not think that they were going to win so easily. But yeah, it was fun to see Zach Gallen. He really pulled a really great
Yeah.
start out when it really counted. And the Diamondbacks are just like a player or two away. I think they are going to be one of the more exciting teams to watch in this offseason. Maybe they bring back a JD Martinez to be a big right-handed bat.
Yeah.
Maybe they go get one of these pitchers. Maybe they get a Jordan Montgomery to kind of come in and supplement their rotation. They have a bullpen that has a lot of talent in it, and they have a young player group that I think could be a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, Christian Walker didn't really perform that well during the World Series. He had a couple of errors. We talked about this. He's the best first baseman defensively in baseball by like a
Like
wide
by a
margin,
mile. It's
and he was
insane.
booting the ball in the World
Yeah.
Series. They were just, whether the pressure got to him, if they were having a bad week, if whatever it could
Yeah.
be. Baseball's hard and random, and things just don't always fall your
Yeah.
way. But I think that they are a team that is their arrow is pointed straight up.
Yeah.
They should be really exciting. And then on the other end, man, look out for these Rangers. They're good. Most of that team is coming back next
Yeah.
year, and I have a distinct feeling that they're about to spend a lot of money too.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, at this point, you won a World Series. Your core is there. You've got big pockets. They're bigger now because you just won a World Series. You arguably free agent or pitching is still your problem, and we got a massive free agent pitching class right in front of us.
so
So,
I want to make
uh,
a prediction really early for the Rangers, if this
okay,
is okay.
yeah,
I think Clayton
I'll allow it.
Kershaw
Proceed.
Clayton Kershaw is getting surgery right now.
Yeah.
And if he comes back healthy, he's going to sign. He's going to come back to baseball and play. I think that he is going to sign with the Rangers, and the Rangers are going to go into the playoffs with a healthy Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer, and Jacob DeGrom headlining that rotation.
Oh my god. Well, DeGrom, I guess, could make it back in
He'll,
time for the
so
playoffs next year,
I
right?
looked it up.
Yeah.
He'll be back like the last 2 months, last like
Okay.
6 weeks
Yeah.
of next year's season. Let's say the Clayton Kershaw gets a slow start. Max Scherzer should be healthy. You have three Hall of Famers frontlining that rotation with the offense that they have. I don't know. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I kind of want it to happen just for the story. But
Yeah.
that's my prediction. He's a Dallas guy. He'd be going back home. We'll see. But that's
Well,
my
I
early
mean,
prediction.
signing often injured future Hall of Famers has been working out really well for everyone recently.
Right?
So
Yeah.
you might as well pile it on. Now, I mean, that would be fun. I mean, that's terrifying.
Yeah, it is.
Kershaw is my secret, the one that I think out of all the players that I want the Cardinals to sign,
Oh,
Kershaw is
he's
like
so
my
much
number
fun.
one. But
Yeah.
I just don't think it's gonna happen. But he's definitely it's actually more intriguing now that he's basically taking off the first half of the season and will be
Yeah.
coming in. You just see the smoke filling the room, and he enters into the stadium for his first start. It's a really good storyline for a guy who is considering retiring anyway. To come in at the end of a season and help a team with a playoff run. That said, his besides being one of the greatest pitchers of all time, the other storyline about him is that he's a terrible playoff pitcher. So I don't know if it's it's not exactly the perfect story,
No,
but
he-
still,
it
it's Clayton
is.
Kershaw.
It is still. I have such a, and I know I'm a Cardinals fan, and I should be like, yeah, Clayton Kershaw sucks in the playoffs. We crush him every time. It is just my brain cannot fully wrap my head around the best pitcher, one of the best pitchers of all time, the one of the
Mhm.
best pitchers of this generation, assuredly, and one of the best pitchers of all time on an inning per inning basis, is somehow all of a sudden just not good in the playoffs. That does not make sense to me. I don't buy that narrative because he is Clayton Kershaw. He led the league in ERA so many times. He just too good.
I know, but at the same time, it's like the stats are getting out of small sample
I
size.
know.
He's
I
got
just, I, yeah,
Listen to this, man. He's got 194 innings pitched
yeah,
in the playoffs.
yeah.
So a full season, right? With a 4.49 ERA, which is double his career ERA. It's
Right.
wild. I don't, I think the more logical explanation of it is that he just wears down over a season,
Yeah.
and he's been injury prone or dealt with injuries basically his entire career. And it has nothing to do with being like scared or whatever. It's no narrative-y stuff. It's just that by time he gets to October, his body is breaking down and he's just slightly less effective. And because it's the playoffs and you're only pitching against amped up good teams, your margin for error is far lower.
It's hard to, like you said, the sample size is getting large and everything, and it's happening over and over again.
Yeah.
I get it. I hear those numbers. It just does not make sense to me.
That's why I'm trying to think, what is the actual like logic? And it's his body. He's just like, in the playoffs, he's like 10% less effective than standard Kershaw, and you're going against the best teams in baseball.
I do wonder, like, because whenever he's asked this question, he's like, oh, I just got to put my head down, try hard, and blah, 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 prepare more, or whatever it is. I do wonder what he would say if you could, maybe after he retires, he'll be a little more, he'll talk about it a little more directly. But
he's like, I was just scared. I was just always so scary.
Yeah, I mean, October is scary.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's ghosts and skeletons,
I get it, but he's Clayton Kershaw.
It's Clayton Kershaw.
It just blows my mind.
Yeah, I don't get it. So, congratulations, Texas Rangers. You did it. Jordan Montgomery got a ring. Your favorite ex-president, George W. Bush, got to celebrate.
Big Bush guy.
Yeah, big Bush guy. Yeah. Let's talk about. There's been a lot of. It's been a rough week for managers.
Oh my God.
For managers in the MLB. So let's get into some league news. Now that the season is over and free agency's open, teams are also adjusting their managerial staff, their front office staff, and some of it's been pretty obvious, but there's been a couple things that have been pretty surprising as well. How do you want to go through this?
The only way to start this is talk about Craig Counsell. We were talking, I think this podcast officially predicted that he was going to be the Mets manager because of the David Stearns connection.
Yeah.
I think it was also likely he was going back to the Brewers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teams that could use the Astros would have been a slam dunk. But the Cubs have gone completely unhinged. And I think, well, I have two things. I have many things to say right now. I'm a little fired up about this whole thing, but the news is that the Cubs hire Craig Counsell as manager. He is going to be making $40 million over the next 5 years, $8 million per year. They fire David Ross and they make Craig Counsell the highest paid manager in the history of the sport by a couple $1 million. They blew everybody out of the water. The Brewers were reportedly offering him $5 million a year. The Mets reportedly were around 6.5. I think more of this will come out. I find it fascinating for several reasons. First off, I think the Brewers kind of shat the bed on this one.
Yep.
Full stop. I think the Cubs are kind of insane for what they did to old man Ross in the sense that he's been there during the quote unquote rebuild or whatever has been going on here. And he allowed that team, he was driving that team when they took a massive leap forward, arguably a year early than I think everybody else thought the Cubs were on, and was doing a fine job, is well liked, handles the media well, presumably handles the clubhouse well. And like I said, had a successful year. Now they did underperform their Pythag by quite a bit last year. Maybe they're blaming Ross for that. But for the Cubs to handle it this way, a hire fire situation is completely insane. And for it to be that dollar amount is completely insane.
Yeah. Well, it is funny too. We've talked about it several times already, but like the dollar amounts in this world are so much lower than what we're used to talking about in baseball contract sense. But still, like record setting contract out of nowhere is notable.
It's wild.
And you said a lot of good things about David Ross. It sure, all those things seem to be true, unless your name is Wilson Contreras. I don't know if you saw that.
I did see this.
Who posted, I think he said about time on an Instagram post that was saying David Ross has been fired. And Wilson Contreras was both his teammate and played for him as a member of the Chicago Cubs. So arguably one of the most likely to know him types of people. And I don't know what he was on. Well, he was really on one when he decided to post about time.
They
It then was deleted. But it's pretty funny.
they ran a pitching staff and were catching with each other as a
Yeah,
backup. Like if you
yeah,
remember, Old Man Ross was pretty much just John Lester's catcher. It was kind of like
yeah,
a private catcher type deal. So they were lock and step for years.
yeah. It's
Very
so funny.
strange.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. And the way it happened too, like there was reporting, it's like uh Counsell's expected to make his decision in the next couple hours between the Mets and the Brewers, and then like 20
Boom.
minutes later, the Cubs have signed Craig Counsell. But it's crazy, but also you got to kind of respect it, right? Like he's
Oh, absolutely.
arguably the best manager out there. They want to win. They've got the money. Like it sucks to hurt injure like a relationship that you've had, but at the end of the day,
Get your
it's
guy.
sports and you're trying to
Yeah.
win, and it's like, I think we all wish the Cardinals would kind of do stuff like this a little bit more too.
Yeah.
We kind of saw it with Shilp, but it's totally different. But like just saying like, sorry about the narrative, sorry about the history, like this is the best player. Let's just
Right.
go, or this is the best decision. Let's not worry about the like narrative side of it, and let's just do the best thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's good for him. I mean, I hate it because it's the Cubs, and
It's really going to suck for Cardinals fans.
yeah, and
I think it's gonna.
there's
Oh,
reporting
sorry.
that the Cubs are planning to spin big. Otani is apparently like on the, you know, so
I
which
think that this
makes a lot of
signing
sense.
is
Yeah,
signaling that really loudly. Like
and they should.
we're getting our guy, and now
Yeah,
we are going to bolster this existing team with talent, and we're pushing in. We are the Chicago Cubs. We're a big deal. Here we come. I think so. I think that's coming, and it wouldn't surprise me if Yamamoto. Wouldn't surprise me if Otani. I think that they are really. I
yeah,
think they're going to get to that $200 million plus payroll, and they're going to flex their Chicago Cubs muscle here this offseason, and it's not going to be great for Cardinals fans. I think another thing that it kind of tells me is that I wonder if this is the first leaf to fall as far as like, last offseason we saw the high end shortstops. If you're a high end player, you are going to get really, really paid. It's going to cost a lot of money to acquire you. If you're in the middle class of player, you're getting the contracts aren't even in the same world, right? And
yeah.
I wonder if this is the first leaf to fall for that version of managers.
Hmm.
If you know what I'm saying, like
Yeah,
he's widely regarded as the best one. He is going to get paid an elite salary for an elite manager, and this is kind of be how it's going to go from now on. Like
yeah.
maybe Snitker is the next, or I don't know who's the second. Maybe Schumacher is the next highly paid
Hmm.
manager, but there's going to be this kind of like haves and have nots and different classes of baseball managers. And I'm just so fascinated by this deal. The last thing that I want to talk about here is like, what are the Cubs evaluating? I would love to know how, like, is Craig Counsell like a 5-win player for the Cubs? Is like, how are they
Yeah. How do
valuing
you
what he's
determine that?
bringing? How do they determine $8 million? How do they determine he's the guy? Like, it's just
Yeah.
crazy to me. I'd love to know what's going on in there.
Because there's always so much. One of the reasons they're lower paid is that like there is a narrative of like, well, the manager only does so much.
Right.
They're people managers at the end of the day, right? And so like they're not on the field, they're not impacting the game. Like, yeah, they're doing bullpen management, but like so much of that is determined outside of their control at this point. Anyway, like they're the face and the voice of the team, and that's about it. And so you hear that a lot, especially you hear that when you have like a mediocre to bad manager. Everyone's like, don't worry about it. It's not the manager, it's the player on the field.
Yeah.
But now the Cubs are saying like at least with Counsell for whatever reasons, like, no, it's like it is worth going out and getting into a bidding war for this specific guy
Yeah.
on top of what we're going to still have to pay David Ross and the potential like warm fuzzies hit of firing your franchise icon,
Yeah.
which I don't think they're probably most Cubs fans are okay with this, I
You would
bet it,
think.
yeah, but like still it is part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also like I'm just so fascinated with this move. Does having Craig Counsell as your manager make it easier to acquire high end talent that you might be trying to acquire this offseason?
Yeah.
Does that make it easier to bring Shohei Ohtani if you know you have Craig Counsell there? Is that
He
part
seems
of
like
it?
he seems like a nice dude. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah. It's also interesting that like, because how do you value him? Because obviously the Brewers have been good for a few years now. But they also have like really good players, and like they're just a good upper middle team, with two of the best. They've had an elite pitching staff for several years in a row now that's basically carried them. Like, what is he doing on the ground that you can see and that you can measure enough to say that like he was so good, we have to do this?
That he was just walking around MLB saying, "Who wants me? Who wants to throw the most cash at me?" I wonder even how much he was interviewing. Like
Yeah,
like I can't remember a manager being hired in this way.
right. Yeah, it's wild. Yeah. It's not like
Yeah.
he went and won a World Series with a team that never, that it's like Torey Lovello you would think would be more like, oh my God, Torey
Yeah.
Lovello, he just took an 84 win team to the World Series.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
wild.
yeah.
But I will
I don't know.
say Cardinals fans should be unhappy about this.
Yeah.
This is not good.
Yeah, the Chicago Cubs are a big market team who are willing to spend and have a great base. Although they did lose Bellinger, who was a
They
big
did.
part of that team, and I don't know that he's
Who
going to be a Cub again.
they
So
might bring back. Who
they
knows?
might. Yeah.
He might get a lot of money. I'm very curious to see where he signs and for how
Yankees.
much.
That's my guess.
I'm guessing Giants. I think the Giants
Mhm.
are going to flex some muscle this
Yeah.
offseason
Yeah.
because they were so boring and stupid last year.
Yeah.
Boring and stupid.
Boring and stupid.
All right, moving on. You said his name, Torey Lovullo, after his World Series loss, taking the L,
Loser.
gets signed through 2026. Good for him. I think that makes all the sense in the world. Like I
Mhm.
said, I think they're on a upward trajectory and probably a great idea to keep him in the fold.
Yeah, agree. There's a
Um,
lot of these next ones you're going to run through. It's all like,
yeah.
yeah, they're all fine. They all kind of make sense.
Yeah, the Mets, after losing out on Counsell, they signed Yankees bench coach Carlos Mendoza as their manager. He's kind of like a baseball lifer guy, probably a good signing. Not a household name by any means,
Mhm.
but I really think that David Stearns is running that ship, and
Yeah,
Carlos Mendoza is going to execute the David Stearns plan. But yeah,
right.
anyways, good signing. As we know, Terry Francona retired. The Guardians have hired Stephen Vogt as a manager, which is something I think is really exciting. I think Stephen Vogt has one of my favorite major league personalities of the last like 10 years or so. I think he's really funny, really interesting, thoughtful guy. And backup catchers becoming managers is a great pipeline. So I think this is probably a solid signing, and kind of fun.
Yeah, it's like thick white dude who used to be a catcher is the like prototype for a big league manager.
Yep. Sure is. The Marlins have officially hired former Rays GM Peter Bendix as their new Pobo. We were kind of talking about this after they fired Kim Ng. How desirable of a position is this?
Yeah.
And then the Marlins kind of go out and get one of the best, people to hand that job to, Peter Bendix, he's been with the Rays, I think, since 2009 or something like that.
Yeah.
So smart move. I'm guessing they're going to ask him to raise it.
Mhm.
That seem
Everybody is.
that's all.
Yeah.
That's all that people do now is, hey, can you raise this?
Well, which is funny because what you should really be saying is, can you Dodgers or Astros this?
Right,
But what every organization really wants is for you to make a championship level team without spending any money.
right,
Because the Rays and the Astros are just, or sorry, the Astros and the Dodgers are just the Rays with double the budget,
right.
you know? And so the Marlins are like, yeah, the Red Sox, even though they have an infinite pool of money, they're like, do what the Rays are doing so we can only spend $60 million and go to the World Series,
Yeah,
So it's
which
actually like, I don't want to be like cynical here, but it is a little like, like
it's insane.
yeah.
Yeah, I want my cake and I want to eat it too.
Yeah,
The thing that drives me nuts about the Marlins, and I know they don't draw very well, but it's a massive media market, and their salary, their salary in the books for next year is $60 million, which puts them in line with the Guardians and the Royals.
Well,
And
I think I think they screwed themselves a little bit, but with some good intention back when they built the new stadium and signed all those super high dollar players to sort of like kickstart the Miami Marlins, the Miami, like we are the team of Miami. You know, they got like a bunch of Cuban players and stuff like that, and
Ozzie Guillen came in.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be this big, like, flashy team to match the culture of Miami, and, the reality is that, like, sports teams are built over years or if not decades, and fan bases are built over decades, and, like, yeah, you might be able to attract some people to opening day when you do something big and flashy, but you need sustained success in order to, like, actually have a and that's where they're bad is they're constantly tearing down their team and rebuilding and so that there's no like when you're in Miami, like there's 1,000 other things that I'd rather do than go watch like the new version of the Marlins, you know?
What? Yeah. Like Jorge Soler is not a household name.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there, but probably a good signing, even though their process is, stupid.
And the Cardinals should get Bloom and Ing as advisors in the
give them the keys.
Yep.
Final piece of news: Joey Votto has officially become a free agent, which is I
Get
love
him,
Votto.
Mo.
Get him, Mo. I don't think that's going to happen. I do think he is going to sign with the Blue Jays.
Yeah,
he's going to go back
Canadian.
home,
Yeah,
go back north. He's going to kind of take the
I think they
Brandon
get a
Belt role.
10% discount if they sign him because he's Canadian. I think that's how that
so.
works.
Also, the loons are worth less. So
Yeah.
there's some finagling in there financially.
Uh-huh.
But all right, that's all I got for league news.
All right, we're going to wrap this up with another dumb game. We're returning to a relatively new game. We've been talking a lot about salaries here. And so we're going to talk about salaries and Cardinal contracts a lot this offseason, more than we already have. So we're returning to a newer game that I called You Income, You Lose Some. And so last time
I blew chunks on this one.
You did, but with this one I think will be a little bit easier. But
the bird scored was not nice to me for my performance.
Well, what do you say? Stan Musial made like $12 million, which I think was enough money that would have made him like president at that time. Let alone, So
I'm not saying the bird scored was wrong for making fun of me. I'm just pointing out that my feelings were hurt.
Yeah, I think that was their goal, and target acquired. Target hit. All right. So I was just thinking it sure seems like we're going to see a new high as far as Cardinal contracts go.
Yeah.
Right. A very reserved team. Now, maybe not. Maybe if Gray is the biggest guy, 90 million, but it certainly seems like there's going to be a new record setting contract from the Cardinals this offseason. So I started thinking, well, what are the biggest contracts the Cardinals have ever given out?
Yeah.
And so I've got in front of me the top 10 all-time Cardinal contracts. Now, this actually is including extensions, which I do think makes it a little bit easier for you.
Yeah.
But this is like, what's the biggest chunk of change the Cardinals have given out at a single time to a player? So we're looking at total lifetime value of the contract and the player. So you get the name, and then if you can get the terms of the contract.
Yeah. So like to make sure I understand this properly, like Yadier Molina was a Cardinal for 1,000 years. Are we talking about one of those deals that he signed or his entire career? Okay.
Individual contracts.
Okay.
So one of those deals that he signed. And,
all right.
And I have this stack ranked again by that dollar value at the end.
Okay.
So what are the top 10? You're just going to guess. Three wrongs and you're out. And I'll go through the list. But as far as wrong going being, just if you guess someone who's not on the list at all, I'm not expecting you to necessarily get all the dollar amounts exactly right.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to get those right. But the good news for me is that most of these are going to be pretty recent, which helps my brain out.
Yes.
So I'm going to go, I think Matt Holliday is probably number one with a bullet, if I had to guess.
Well, Matt Holliday is on there, but he's actually number two.
Number two.
So do you remember the terms of his contract?
It was like, oh crap. It was like 7 years. He was making He was 7 years and he was making 17 a year, I think. So what is that? That puts him, what is that, around 100 million or no, more than that.
Yeah. So you're pretty much right. So it's 7/120.
120, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that one. That was, what a good day. I thought
Yes.
with
Yes.
Boris being his agent, I was like, it's not going to happen.
Man,
And
and he was so good in 2009, and then they
yeah,
let it go to free agency, and we were all so worried. And
I
yeah,
love Matt Holiday.
same. All right,
All
so
right.
that was number 2.
So I'm guessing, I don't remember the terms of this, but I do remember it was a pretty chonky extension. I'm going to guess that number 1 is actually Albert Pujols' extension during his rookie contract.
Albert Pujols is number 3.
Damn it. Okay.
So right behind Matt Holiday, and these are all really close. Do you remember Pujols' numbers?
I don't. I think it was like 160, something like that. I can't remember how many years, but I really can't remember it.
No, it was 7/100. It was a
Wow, what
$100 million extension.
What a good deal that was.
Yeah.
That might be one of the best deals in baseball history.
It might be. Yeah,
it really
for
might.
sure. I mean, it might be getting beat by one of these Braves ones where they got him also for like a low dollar also, because they at least gave Pujols $100 million when he was like 24 or whatever.
Ozzie Albies deal is insane.
Or Acuna's deal.
Yeah.
So I meant to say this at the beginning of the game too. I am not including like Nolan Arenado, who is technically the largest contract. The Cardinals,
they didn't sign him.
They didn't sign it. They acquired it. And you could argue when he opted in, but Arenado is not on this list.
All right. We got to put Wilson Contreras up there. We know he's the largest free agent signing for somebody to never play with the Cardinals. So he's definitely on that list.
That is correct. He is the 6th highest.
Okay.
With I'll just say the numbers. It's 587.5.
Yeah. Is Mike Leake on this list?
Yes, he is. Number 8, Mike Leake, 580.
Maybe my most hated deal in Cardinals history.
Well, we only had to watch him for like a year and a half. What a immediate collapse. Yeah.
Called it.
Yes, you did. You very much did.
I'm trying to think there. I mean, Yachty, I think Yachty has to be on this list. I just can't remember the specific details of his extensions prior to the 2 smaller deals he did at the end of his career. But I'm going to just say Yachty or Molina because he has to be on there somewhere.
Yes, you are correct. Now, I want to say something real quick. There's a chance that I missed someone here. It's actually surprisingly difficult to just find a list of all-time contracts from a team. Like I could not find it. So I ended up compiling this myself. So if I end up missing something, let us know. Join the Bird Squad and let me know. But Yachty's biggest dollar value contract that he signed was his 3-year, $60 million contract.
Yeah.
Okay. And so 60 million is the 10th highest contract. And this was an extension, but 60 over 3.
Is Paul Goldschmidt number 1?
Yep, you got it. I was
there we
how
go.
long it was going to take. 5/130 was his extension with the Cardinals.
Another amazing deal signed by the Cardinals.
It's like already he could just not play in 2024, and I assume it would be net. I haven't looked up what the current dollar amount per WAR is, but last I checked, it was around like $9-10 million per WAR, and we paid 130, and he did what, 7 last year. He's excess value already.
I know. I think it was like 2 years ago that took a step down, but then I believe after all those shortstops were signed, it took another step up. So I think it's like 9 or 10. Okay.
So you need 4, 5, 7, and 9. You've not missed yet.
4, 5, 7, and 9. Give me Adam Wainwright.
Yep. 4th overall.
Yeah.
His 5-year, $97.5 million contract was a
good contract.
Was the 4th overall.
Okay. This is probably too long ago, but I do remember a pretty nice extension going to Chris Carpenter. I'm going to say Chris Carpenter.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to get that one. That's number 9. Just shows you how different contracts are. Chris Carpenter, Cy Young winner, etc. 565.
565.
You've got 2 more. One I think you should get. The other one a little trickier.
I think,
but they are all in the last, after the turn of the century.
Oh, really? Okay, because I was going to say Maguire because I thought he got a pretty hefty but short extension after the trade. But that probably would have happened in the 90s. So thank you for that lovely hint. I want to say, shoot. I'm running out of names all of a sudden. I said Albert. I said Yachty. Oh, wait. Did Scott Rowland get extended in the early 2000s? I'm going to say Scott Rowland.
Yep, that's number 5.
Yes.
8 years, $90 million was his
also
extension.
A great deal. Of
course, he didn't play out the full length of that with the Cardinals. I think he signed that in 2002 or 3. But yeah, Scott Rowland, $890.
I'm gonna stick with the MV3, and I'm gonna say Jimmy Ballgame is also on this list.
That's gonna be your first miss.
Damn it!
I don't know what Edmonds' contract with the Cardinals was.
All right.
Yeah, because Edmonds. Let's see. Well, I can look it up, but
yeah. So what spot am I missing right now?
You have one left.
And
it is number 7. And it is both hilarious and also unsurprising that you have forgotten this one.
Hilarious and unsurprising that I've forgotten this one. Makes me think it's somebody I don't like, but the person in my mind is somebody I do like. I'm going to say Matt Carpenter.
No, let me see what Matt Carpenter was.
Man, I thought
he's not on my list. I am
got a
big
nice extension too.
I'm double checking these because no, he let me see. I know for sure the one that you have not gotten is where it is on the list.
Yeah.
I'll see if Matt Carpenter was down at the bottom, but I don't think he got more than 60 million, which is the bottom one right now.
All right. Shoot. Damn it. Balls.
Okay, Matt Carpenter was 6-year, 52 million. So it was close.
Okay.
And also Mark Maguire was 2 years, 30 million, which in, 98 or whatever, like that was a lot of money, but it's not.
I think I just clicked in. Your hint really helped me out.
Yeah.
Dexter Fowler.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Damn it, Dexter Fowler.
Yeah.
Man, that Dexter Fowler and that
Mike Leake,
that's 160 million wasted dollars.
Yeah, Dexter Fowler was 582.
Man,
which until the Wilson Contreras contract was the biggest contract for a person who had not played for the Cardinals before.
Yeah. 3 great deals by the Cardinals. When they spend about $80 million, it goes really well.
Yeah, right. So running down the list again, it was Paul Goldschmidt 5,130, Matt Holliday 7,120, Albert Pujols 7,100. Adam Wainwright 598, basically. Scott Rowland 890, Wilson 587.5, Dexter Fowler 582, Mike Leake 580, Chris Carpenter 565, and Yachty 360.
Man,
Yachty 360, the newest version of the Yachty.
Most of those are really good deals.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is that outside of the Fowler and Leak contracts, you're absolutely very happy with those contracts.
Yeah.
The only thing that really sticks out to you, though, is that outside of the Paul Goldschmidt one, none of these contracts have happened in the last, and Wilson, none of the good one, and we don't even know about the Wilson one yet, as far as whether it's going to be good or not. None of these considered really good contracts have happened in the last 10 years, except for the Paul Goldschmidt extension, which, was surprising in a way that it even happened.
Bring back Walt Jocketty.
That's what we're saying, folks.
Yeah.
How many Arby's does he own?
He doesn't need them. Just baseball acumen.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all for being here. As always, we're finally here in the off season where we might actually have positive Cardinal news. We'll see.
Hey.
It should be a fun off season. Thank you all for listening, tracking it with us. We'll be here every week. And so until next week, go John Mazzella.
Sign Yamamoto.
Yes.
Tiger Ryan fireworks.
You're gonna hear me roar.
Doesn't she like stutter it like
roar, roar, roar. Yeah, I think
that first record is good though. I stand behind that.
All right, here we go.